intentionally or because you're not understanding. What they're saying is you're talking about Christmas in December 25th, and you're trying to tell us that we're wrong to celebrate it because it's associated with paganism. They're telling you there's nothing in the Bible that tells us to celebrate Jesus' birth holiday, and especially there's nothing that says December 25th. None of our apostles said to do that. On the contrary, you have not only in the Hadith, but in the Quran, you have numerous references to Muhammad making Muslims bow down and pray towards the Qibla in Mecca, when, by the way, it was still owned by the Quraysh and the polytheistic tribes of Jahiliyyah. It still had 360 gods and goddesses in it. You have Muhammad and you have the Hadith commanding people to do all of these pagan rituals. This is in your scriptures. So please, if you're going to bring an argument and tell us that we're somehow, our religion is pagan because of something Christians do that's not in the Bible, Jesus didn't say it, our apostles didn't say it, then why can't you see when your Muhammad and your Quran and your Hadith teaches Muslims to adopt the practices 100% exactly what pagans were doing beforehand? It's a much worse claim. Yeah. This is the argument we're making. Barwis, you haven't discussed it at all. Now, do you have something else before we go to the next caller?
Issue. Do you have proof that Abraham built the Kaaba? Proof from sources that were written long before Muhammad was born. What is your evidence for that assertion? I have evidence that Abraham would not do that.
Okay. All I'm going to say is that you guys are not giving me time to discuss this because you guys are saying...
Okay, give us the evidence.
We're giving it to you right now, but you're trying to change the topic. So on this issue, hey, if you give us a source right now, if you give us a source, we will sit here and let you say everything you want about that source. So give us the source. It's your time. Go ahead.
Okay, everything that we do it according to belief. Okay, you believe in Jesus because you have a belief in your heart and you have a Bible that you believe in it.
Okay, so
I told you that Prophet Abraham built the house of God according to a lot of sources.
No, there is no source.
Okay, what other sources,
Barwis?
We got to go to another caller.
Name us one source. One source before Muhammad.
Give us one source, yeah.
One, any source. You said there are lots, but any source before Muhammad. Go ahead.
Yes, right now I'm driving. I cannot...
Okay, Barwis, when you get home, look up your source. Call back. We promise we'll let you get back on the air with your source. Get your source.
Focus on the road, buddy. Focus on the road.
Don't let anyone say that a Christian caused you to have a wreck. Go ahead and drive. Call back when you get home. Thank you, Barwis.
Now, before we go on to the next call, I just want to point out, notice the inconsistency every single time. Yeah. Notice the inconsistency. Yeah. It's a tremendous, horrible problem for you Christians that later Christians have a Christmas tree, even though that's not what Christianity teaches, but it is a massive problem showing that Christianity is pagan because you have Christians today have a Christmas tree. Horrible, horrible problem for you Christians. And yet in Islam we have all the practices that the pagans had. We know this historically. All the practices that are part of our religion, lots of beliefs about the afterlife, about jinn, these are all pagan beliefs, and no problem whatsoever, no reason at all to ever criticize Islam. Total inconsistency. One standard for everything else in the world, totally different standard for Islam.
Go ahead, Sam.
How can this not bother you?
I'm curious. He said he's driving, then watching the show. That's what I was going to ask you.
Barwis, please, if you're
watching the TV, are we on the radio?
Please stop watching it. No,
that's the joke I want to know.
That's actually scary.
No, are we on the radio?
No, we shouldn't be on the radio.
So then how is he watching and driving?
Maybe he's got his
little TV.
I tell you, we are really successful.
Okay, glory to Jesus Christ. May Jesus be exalted in the almighty name of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Internet with cell phone technology in the car just to watch this program.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you.
With the satellite. And he couldn't have just been listening to it. He at least had to look to get the phone number and dial that in while he's driving.
Focus on the road and may God give you traveling mercy.
Although
so
we respect your interest and your dedication and your effort to defend what you believe, but be safe, my friend.
Pastor Joe, I know we have a lot of calls. Let me know when I have the time to establish from the law that God gave to Moses that Abraham would have never instituted the kissing of the black stone.
Yes, and I find it very,
I want to make the case for it.
I find it extremely, actually extremely offensive when Muslims say things like this, because I know their prophet would do all kinds of things and compromise with paganism left and right. But then when they say, oh yeah, and Abraham was like that too, and so were all kinds of people. No, that's an insult. That's an insult to Abraham. You're blaspheming the one true God. You're speaking against Abraham. This is
ridiculous.
I don't have time.
Not yet, but we will. We will. It's a ridiculous revision of history.
Precisely.
To put everything from Adam to Abraham to Isaac to everyone in Mecca.
And
It's ridiculous.
with no evidence. We
No,
pointed
absolutely no
this
historical
out.
whatsoever,
We
not
pointed
one
this out
shred.
before that the Jews and everyone from the time of Abraham, well, they were very careful about keeping records and genealogies. We have nothing. We have nothing between Ishmael and practically
guys
nothing
took
between
down-
Ishmael.
taking a while.
We have nothing between Ishmael and Muhammad.
Please.
And so we have good evidence for what we're claiming about Abraham and Ishmael. You have no evidence for what you're claiming about Abraham
not
and
only
Ishmael,
that.
and you reject our views and cling to your own with
Not
no
only
evidence.
that, look what he's saying. He's saying that although those people were steeped in paganism,
Absolutely,
360 gods and goddesses,
For 2,000 years.
their procedures for 2,000 years were perfectly supposedly.
And notice the inconsistency.
Yeah.
Notice the inconsistency here again. Jesus delivered a message, and his followers couldn't preserve it for 20 years before
Yeah.
it was totally corrupted and
according to
steeped in
Muslims.
paganism.
Right.
And according to them, the pagans, with all of their gods, kept the practices of Abraham reliable. They kept them perfectly for more than 2,000 years. The pagans did this. What makes more sense, my friends? Again, you're telling me that even people who are doing everything in their power to preserve the teachings of Jesus corrupted it almost instantly.
Except the most important one, the very most important thing that Abraham would have told anyone is that the Lord our God is one.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that these pagans in Mecca messed up
preserved,
on
yeah.
and made
But they-
360 gods and goddesses. But everything else they got right.
Yeah, they kept it for over
they didn't get
2,000
punished.
years. They kept it for over 2,000 years, and whereas in Israel, as Sam just pointed out, whereas in Israel, every time people would go astray, God would bring them back to the truth. God let them totally rebel in Arabia, and yet they remained faithful for over 2,000 years. My friends, does that make sense to you, or does it make far more sense to say, Muhammad came along, and these were the practices he grew up with. He didn't know any better. He wasn't a true prophet, and that's why you Muslims have all these pagan practices still today.
Let me make a quick statement before we go to our next caller. I'm not here to defend December 25th,
Me neither,
but,
yeah.
Me neither.
but
None of
by
us.
the way, everyone says, well, it's not December 25th, but they don't know what day it was. So for me, it doesn't really matter. But go to, if you're really thinking and you want to know the truth, if you're interested in truth, go to BethlehemStar.net. BethlehemStar.net. There's a fellow named Rick Larson who has done astronomical studies, and he has some very compelling evidence that December 25th, he says the very day, but right about, was the time when the wise men actually got to the house of Jesus. Now, if you look in Matthew chapter 2,
Yeah, he
you
was not an
find
infant, yeah.
that the wise men, the Magi, did not come when Jesus was born. They actually arrived at the house. And that doesn't mention Joseph here. We
He
don't
was
know
at
if
least 2 years old.
At least 2 years old.
That's right.
And so Rick Larson the whole thing is about the Star of Bethlehem and how the Magi, followed this star. He has, and we have, anyone now, Muslims, atheists, whatever, you have astronomical programs. You can extrapolate back in time to this time of Jesus' birth, and you can find this confluence of 3 stars, and it's really, just go study it. And he says that time, even though, yes, paganism adopted it, that December 25th date would have been right about the time that the Magi would have had the first Christmas, if you will, is in the sense that they came and gave gifts to Jesus. I'm not saying that's gospel. I'm just saying if you're thinking and you want to know the truth, that would exclude almost all Muslim viewers, but maybe there's some of you out there who do. Go to BethlehemStar.net. It's some excellent scholarship that's not just being received in Christian circles, but being received in China and all sorts of astronomical colleges of astronomy around the world. It's quite amazing. BethlehemStar.net.
But what about all